51. Simha's question concerning annihilation. At that time many distinguished citizens were sitting together, assembled in the town hall, and spoke in many ways in praise of the Buddha, of the Dharma, and of the Sangha. Simha, the general-in-chief, a disciple of the Nigantha sect, was sitting among them. And Simha thought, truly, the Blessed One must be the Buddha, the Holy One. I will go and visit him. Then Simha, the general, went to the place where the Nigantha chief was, and having approached him, he said, I wish, Lord, to visit the Samama Gautama. Nath Buddha said, why should you, Simha, who believe in the result of actions according to their moral merit, go to visit the Samama Gautama, who denies the result of actions? The Samama Gautama, O Simha, denies the result of actions. He teaches the doctrine of non-action, and in this doctrine he trains his disciples. Then the desire to go and visit the Blessed One, which had arisen in Simha, the general, abated. Hearing again the praise of the Buddha, of the Dharma, and of the Sangha, Simha asked the Nigantha chief a second time, and again. Nath Buddha persuaded him not to go. When a third time the general heard some men of distinction extol the merits of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the general thought, truly the Samama Gautama must be the Holy Buddha. What are the Niganthas to me, whether they give their consent or not? I shall go without asking their permission to visit him, the Blessed One, the Holy Buddha. And Simha, the general, said to the Blessed One, I have heard, Lord, that the Samama Gautama denies the result of actions. He teaches the doctrine of non-action, saying that the actions of sentient beings do not receive their reward, for he teaches annihilation and the contemptibleness of all things, and in this doctrine he trains his disciples. Teachest thou the doing away of the soul and the burning away of man's being? Pray tell me, Lord, do those who speak thus say the truth, or do they bear false witness against the Blessed One, passing off a spurious dharma as thy dharma? The Blessed One said, there is a way, Simha, in which one who says so is speaking truly of me. On the other hand, Simha, there is a way in which one who says the opposite is speaking truly of me, too. Listen, and I will tell thee. I teach, Simha, the not doing of such actions as are unrighteous, either by deed, or by word, or by thought. I teach the not bringing about of all those conditions of heart which are evil and not good. However, I teach, Simha, the doing of such actions as are righteous, by deed, by word, and by thought. I teach the bringing about of all those conditions of heart which are good and not evil. I teach, Simha, that all the conditions of heart which are evil and not good, unrighteous actions by deed, by word, and by thought, must be burnt away. He who has freed himself, Simha, from all those conditions of heart which are evil and not good, he who has destroyed them as a palm tree which is rooted out, so that they cannot grow up again, such a man has accomplished the eradication of self. I proclaim, Simha, the annihilation of egotism, of lust, of ill will, of delusion. However, I do not proclaim the annihilation of forbearance, of love, of charity, and of truth. I deem, Simha, unrighteous actions contemptible, whether they be performed by deed, or by word, or by thought, but I deem virtue and righteousness praiseworthy. And Simha said, one doubt still lurks in my mind concerning the doctrine of the Blessed One. Will the Blessed One consent to clear the cloud away so that I may understand the Dharma as the Blessed One teaches it? The Tathagat having given his consent, Simha continued, I am a soldier, O Blessed One, and am appointed by the king to enforce his laws and to wage his wars. Does the Tathagat who teaches kindness without end and compassion with all sufferers, permit the punishment of the criminal? And further, does the Tathagat declare that it is wrong to go to war for the protection of our homes, our wives, our children, and our property? Does the Tathagat teach the doctrine of a complete self-surrender, so that I should suffer the evildoer to do what he pleases and yield submissively to him who threatens to take by violence what is my own? Does the Tathagat maintain that all strife, including such warfare as is waged for a righteous cause, should be forbidden? The Buddha replied, he who deserves punishment must be punished, and he who is worthy of favor must be favored. Yet at the same time he teaches to do no injury to any living being but to be full of love and kindness. These injunctions are not contradictory, for whosoever must be punished for the crimes which he has committed, suffers his injury not through the ill will of the judge but on account of his evil doing. His own acts have brought upon him the injury that the executor of the law inflicts. When a magistrate punishes, let him not harbor hatred in his breast, yet a murderer, when put to death, should consider that this is the fruit of his own act. As soon as he will understand that the punishment will purify his soul, he will no longer lament his fate but rejoice at it. And the Blessed One continued, the Tathagat teaches that all warfare in which man tries to slay his brother is lamentable, but he does not teach that those who go to war in a righteous cause, after having exhausted all means to preserve the peace, are blameworthy. He must be blamed who is the cause of war. The Tathagat teaches a complete surrender of self, but he does not teach a surrender of anything to those powers that are evil, be they men or gods or the elements of nature. Struggle must be, for all life is a struggle of some kind. But he that struggles should look to it lest he struggle in the interest of self against truth and righteousness. He who struggles in the interest of self, so that he himself may be great or powerful or rich or famous, will have no reward, but he who struggles for righteousness and truth, will have great reward, for even his defeat will be a victory. Self is not a fit vessel to receive any great success. Self is small and brittle and its contents will soon be spilt for the benefit, and perhaps also for the curse, of others. Truth, however, is large enough to receive the yearnings and aspirations of all selves, and when the selves break like soap bubbles, their contents will be preserved, and in the truth they will lead a life everlasting. He who goeth to battle, O Simha, even though it be in a righteous cause, must be prepared to be slain by his enemies, for that is the destiny of warriors, and should his fate overtake him, he has no reason for complaint. But he who is victorious should remember the instability of earthly things. His success may be great, but be it ever so great, the wheel of fortune may turn again and bring him down into the dust. However, if he moderates himself and, extinguishing all hatred in his heart, lifts his downtrodden adversary up and says to him, "Come now and make peace and let us be brothers," he will gain a victory that is not a transient success, for its fruits will remain forever. Great is a successful general, O Simha, but he who has conquered self is the greater victor. The doctrine of the conquest of self, O Simha, is not taught to destroy the souls of men, but to preserve them. He who has conquered self is more fit to live, to be successful, and to gain victories than he who is the slave of self. He whose mind is free from the illusion of self, will stand and not fall in the battle of life. He whose intentions are righteousness and justice, will meet with no failure, but be successful in his enterprises, and his success will endure. He who harbors in his heart love of truth will live and not die, for he has drunk the water of immortality. Struggle then, O general, courageously, and fight thy battles vigorously, but be a soldier of truth, and the Tathagat will bless thee. When the Blessed One had spoken thus, Simha, the general, said, "Glorious Lord, glorious Lord! Thou hast revealed the truth. Great is the doctrine of the Blessed One. Thou, indeed, art the Buddha, the Tathagat, the Holy One. Thou art the teacher of mankind. Thou showest us the road of salvation, for this indeed is true deliverance. He who follows thee will not miss the light. To enlighten his path, he will find blessedness and peace. I take my refuge, Lord, in the Blessed One, and in his doctrine, and in his brotherhood. May the Blessed One receive me from this day forth while my life lasts as a disciple who has taken refuge in him." And the Blessed One said, "Consider first, Simha, what thou doest. It is becoming that persons of rank like thyself should do nothing without due consideration." Simha's faith in the Blessed One increased. He replied, "Had other teachers, Lord, succeeded in making me their disciple, they would carry around their banners through the whole city of Vaishali, shouting, 'Simha, the general has become our disciple.' For the second time, Lord, I take my refuge in the Blessed One. And in the Dharma, and in the Sangha, may the Blessed One receive me from this day forth while my life lasts as a disciple who has taken his refuge in him." Said the Blessed One, "For a long time, Simha, offerings have been given to the Niganthas in thy house. Thou shouldst Therefore deem it right also in the future to give them food when they come to thee on their alms pilgrimage. And Simha's heart was filled with joy. He said, I have been told, Lord, the Samamagodama says, to me alone and to nobody else should gifts be given. My pupils alone and the pupils of no one else should receive offerings. But the Blessed One exhorts me to give also to the Niganthas. Well, Lord, we shall see what is seasonable. For the third time, Lord, I take my refuge in thee. Blessed One, and in his Dharma, and in his fraternity. 52. All existence is spiritual. And there was an officer among the retinue of Simha who had heard of the discourses of the Blessed One, and there was some doubt left in his heart. This man came to the Blessed One and said, It is said, O Lord, that the Samamagodama denies the existence of the soul. Do they who say so speak the truth, or do they bear false witness against the Blessed One? And the Blessed One said, There is a way in which those who say so are speaking truly of me. On the other hand, there is a way in which those who say so do not speak truly of me. The Tathagata teaches that there is no self. He who says that the soul is his self and that the self is the thinker of our thoughts and the actor of our deeds, teaches a wrong doctrine, which leads to confusion and darkness. On the other hand, the Tathagata teaches that there is mind. He who understands by soul-mind, and says that mind exists, teaches the truth which leads to clearness and enlightenment. The officer said, Does, then, the Tathagata maintain that two things exist? That which we perceive with our senses and that which is mental? Said the Blessed One, Verily, I say unto thee, thy mind is spiritual, but neither is the sense perceived void of spirituality. The Bodhi is eternal and it dominates all existence, as the good law guiding all beings in their search for truth. It changes brute nature into mind, and there is no being that cannot be transformed into a vessel of truth. 53. Identity and non-identity. Kudadanta, the head of the Brahmins in the village of Dhanmati, having approached the Blessed One respectfully, greeted him and said, I am told, O Samama, that thou art the Buddha, the Holy One, the All-Knowing, the Lord of the world. But if thou wert the Buddha, wouldst thou not come like a king in all thy glory and power? Said the Blessed One, Thine eyes are holden. If the eye of thy mind were undimmed thou couldst see the glory and the power of truth. Said Kudadanta, Show me the truth and I shall see it. But thy doctrine is without consistency. If it were consistent, it would stand, but as it is not, it will pass away. The Blessed One replied, The truth will never pass away. Kudadanta said, I am told that thou teachest the law, yet thou tearest down religion. Thy disciples despise rites and abandon immolation, but reverence for the gods can be shown only by sacrifices. The very nature of religion consists in worship and sacrifice. Said the Buddha, Greater than the immolation of bullocks is the sacrifice of self. He who offers to the gods his evil desires will see the uselessness of slaughtering animals at the altar. Blood has no cleansing power, but the eradication of lust will make the heart pure. Better than worshipping gods is obedience to the laws of righteousness. Kudadanta, being of a religious disposition and anxious about his fate after death, had sacrificed countless victims. Now he saw the folly of atonement by blood. Not yet satisfied, however, with the teachings of the Tathagata, Kudadanta continued, "Thou believest, O Master, that beings are reborn, that they migrate in the evolution of life, and that subject to the law of karma we must reap what we sow, yet thou teachest the non-existence of the soul. Thy disciples praise utter self-extinction as the highest bliss of nirvana. If I am merely a combination of the sankras, my existence will cease when I die. If I am merely a compound of sensations and ideas and desires, whither can I go at the dissolution of the body?" Said the Blessed One, "O Brahman, thou art religious and earnest. Thou art seriously concerned about thy soul. Yet is thy work in vain because thou art lacking in the one thing that is needful. There is rebirth of character, but no transmigration of a self. Thy thought forms reappear, but there is no ego entity transferred. The stanza uttered by a teacher is reborn in the scholar who repeats the words. Only through ignorance and delusion do men indulge in the dream that their souls are separate and self-existent entities. Thy heart, O Brahman, is cleaving still to self. Thou art anxious about heaven, but thou seekest the pleasures of self in heaven, and thus thou canst not see the bliss of truth and the immortality of truth. Verily I say unto thee, the Blessed One has not come to teach death, but to teach life, and thou discernest not the nature of living and dying. This body will be dissolved, and no amount of sacrifice will save it. Therefore, seek thou the life that is of the mind. Where self is, truth cannot be, yet when truth comes, self will disappear. Therefore, let thy mind rest in the truth, propagate the truth. Put thy whole will in it, and let it spread. In the truth thou shalt live forever. Self is death and truth is life. The cleaving to self is a perpetual dying, while moving in the truth is partaking of nirvana, which is life everlasting." Kudadanta said, "Where, O Venerable Master, is nirvana?" "Nirvana is wherever the precepts are obeyed," replied the Blessed One. "Do I understand thee aright?" rejoined the Brahman, "that nirvana is not a place, and being nowhere it is without reality?" "Thou dost not understand me aright," said the Blessed One. "Now listen and answer these questions. Where does the wind dwell?" "Nowhere," was the reply. Buddha retorted, "Then, sir, there is no such thing as wind." Kudadanta made no reply, and the Blessed One asked again, "Answer me, O Brahman, where does wisdom dwell? Is wisdom a locality?" "Wisdom has no allotted dwelling place," replied Kudadanta. Said the Blessed One, "Meanest thou that there is no wisdom, no enlightenment, no righteousness, and no salvation, because nirvana is not a locality? As a great and mighty wind which passeth over the world in the heat of the day, so the Tathagat comes to blow over the minds of mankind with the breath of his love, so cool, so sweet, so calm, so delicate, and those tormented by fever assuage their suffering and rejoice at the refreshing breeze. Said Kudadanta, I feel, O Lord, that thou proclaimest a great doctrine, but I cannot grasp it. Forbear with me that I ask. Again, tell me, O Lord, if there be no Atma, how can there be immortality? The activity of the mind passeth, and our thoughts are gone when we have done thinking. Buddha replied, our thinking is gone, but our thoughts continue. Reasoning ceases, but knowledge remains. Said Kudadanta, how is that? Is not reasoning and knowledge the same? The Blessed One explained the distinction by an illustration. It is as when a man wants, during the night, to send a letter, and after having ID's clerk called, has a lamp lit, and gets the letter written. Then, when that has been done, he extinguishes the lamp. But though the writing has been finished and the light has been put out, the letter is still there. Thus does reasoning cease and knowledge remain, and in the same way mental activity ceases, but experience, wisdom, and all the fruits of our acts endure. Kudadanta continued, tell me, O Lord, pray tell me, where, if the Sankras are dissolved, is the identity of myself? If my thoughts are propagated, and if my soul migrates, my thoughts cease to be my thoughts and my soul ceases to be my soul. Give me an illustration, but pray, O Lord, tell me, where is the identity of myself? Said the Blessed One, suppose a man were to light a lamp, would it burn the night through? Yes, it might do so, was the reply. Now, is it the same flame that burns in the first watch of the night as in the second? Kudadanta hesitated. He thought yes, it is the same flame, but fearing the complications of a hidden meaning, and trying to be exact, he said, no, it is not. Then, continued the Blessed One, there are flames, one in the first watch and the other in the second watch. No, sir, said Kudadanta. In one sense it is not the same flame, but in another sense it is the same flame. It burns the same kind of oil, it emits the same land of light, and it serves the same purpose. Very well, said the Buddha, and would you call those flames the same that have burned yesterday and are burning now in the same lamp, filled with the same kind of oil, illuminating the same room? They may have been extinguished during the day, suggested Kudadanta. Said the Blessed One, suppose the flame of the first watch had been extinguished during the second watch, would you call it the same if it burns again in the third watch? Replied Kudadanta, in one sense it is a different flame, in another it is not. The Tathagat asked again, has the time that elapsed during the extinction of the flame anything to do with its identity or non-identity? No, sir, said the Brahmin, it has not. There is a difference, and an identity, whether many years elapsed or only 1 second. And also whether the lamp has been extinguished in the meantime, or not. Well, then, we agree that the flame of today is in a certain sense the same as the flame of yesterday, and in another sense it is different at every moment. Moreover, the flames of the same kind, illuminating with equal power the same land of rooms, are, in a certain sense, the same. Yes, sir, replied Kudadanta. The Blessed One continued, now, suppose there is a man who feels like thyself, thinks like thyself, and acts like thyself, is he not the same man as thou? No, sir, interrupted Kudadanta. Said the Buddha, dost thou deny that the same logic holds good for thyself that holds good for the things of the world? Kudadanta bethought himself and rejoined slowly, no, I do not. The same logic holds good universally, but there is a peculiarity about myself which renders it altogether different from everything else and also from other selves. There may be another man who feels exactly like me, thinks like me, and acts like me. Suppose even he had the same name and the same kind of possessions, he would not be myself. True, Kudadanta, answered Buddha, he would not be thyself. Now, tell me, is the person who goes to school one, and that same person when he has finished his schooling another? Is it one who commits a crime, another who is punished by having his hands and feet cut off? They are the same, was the reply. Then sameness is constituted by continuity only, asked the Tathagata. Not only by continuity, said Kudadanta, but also and mainly by identity of character. Very well, concluded the Buddha, then thou agreest that persons can be the same, in the same sense as two flames of the same kind are called the same, and thou must recognize that in this sense another man of the same character and product of the same karma is the same as thou. Well, I do, said the Brahmin. The Buddha continued, and in this same sense alone art thou the same today as yesterday. Thy nature is not constituted by the matter of which thy body consists, but by thy sankharas, the forms of the body, of sensations, of thoughts. Thy person is the combination of the sankharas. Wherever they are, thou art. Whithersoever they go, thou goest. Thus thou wilt recognize in a certain sense an identity of thyself, and in another sense a difference. But he who does not recognize the identity should deny all identity, and should say that the questioner is no longer the same person as he who a minute after receives the answer. Now consider the continuation of thy personality, which is preserved in thy karma. Dost thou call it death and annihilation, or fife and continued life? I call it life and continued life, rejoined Kudadanta, for it is the continuation of my existence, but I do not care for that kind of continuation. All I care for is the continuation of self. In the other sense, which makes of every man, whether identical with me or not, an altogether different person. Very well, said Buddha. This is what thou desirest, and this is the cleaving to self. This is thy error. All compound things are transitory, they grow and they decay. All compound things are subject to pain, they will be separated from what they love and be joined to what they abhor. All compound things lack a self, an Atma, an ego. How is that? Asked Kudadanta. Where is thyself? Asked the Buddha. And when Kudadanta made no reply, he continued, thyself to which thou cleavest is a constant change. Years ago thou wast a small babe, then thou wast a boy, then a youth, and now thou art a man. Is there any identity of the babe and the man? There is an identity in a certain sense only. Indeed, there is more identity between the flames of the first and the third watch, even though the lamp might have been extinguished during the second watch. Now which is thy true self, that of yesterday, that of today, or that of tomorrow, for the preservation of which thou clamorest? Kudadanta was bewildered. Lord of the world, he said, I see my error, but I am still confused. The Tathagat continued, it is by a process of evolution that Sankharas come to be. There is no Sankhara which has sprung into being without a gradual becoming. Thy Sankharas are the product of thy deeds in former existences. The combination of thy Sankharas is thyself. Wheresoever they are impressed, thither thy self migrates. In thy Sankharas thou wilt continue to live, and thou wilt reap in future existences the harvest sown now and in the past. Verily, O Lord, rejoined Kudadanta, this is not a fair retribution. I cannot recognize the justice that others after me will reap what I am sowing now. The Blessed One waited a moment and then replied, is all teaching in vain? Dost thou not understand that those others are thou thyself? Thou thyself wilt reap what thou sowest, not others. Think of a man who is ill-bred and destitute, suffering from the wretchedness of his condition. As a boy he was slothful and indolent, and when he grew up he had not learned a craft to earn a living. Wouldst thou say his misery is not the product of his own action, because the adult is no longer the same person as was the boy? Verily, I say unto thee, not in the heavens, not in the midst of the sea, not if thou hidest thyself away in the clefts of the mountains, wilt thou find a place where thou canst escape the fruit of thine evil actions. At the same time thou art sure to receive the blessings of thy good actions. The man who has long been traveling and who returns home in safety, the welcome of kinsfolk, friends, and acquaintances awaits. So, the fruits of his good works bid him welcome who has walked in the path of righteousness, when he passes over from the present life into the hereafter. Kudadanta said, I have faith in the glory and excellency of thy doctrines. My eye cannot as yet endure the light, but I now understand that there is no self, and the truth dawns upon me. Sacrifices cannot save, and invocations are idle talk. But how shall I find the path to life everlasting? I know all the Vedas by heart and have not found the truth. Said the Buddha, learning is a good thing, but it availeth not. True wisdom can be acquired by practice only. Practice the truth, that thy brother is the same as thou. Walk in the noble path of righteousness, and thou wilt understand that while there is death in self, there is immortality in truth. Said Kudadanta, let me take my refuge in the Blessed One, in the Dharma, and in the brotherhood. Accept me as thy disciple and let me partake of the bliss of immortality. 54. The Buddha omnipresent and the Blessed One thus addressed the brethren. Those only who do not believe, call me Gautama, but you call me the Buddha, the Blessed One, the Teacher. And this is right, for I have in this life entered nirvana, while the life of Gautama has been extinguished. Self has disappeared and the truth has taken its abode in me. This body of mine is Gautama's body, and it will be dissolved in due time, and after its dissolution no one, neither God nor man, will see Gautama again. But the truth remains. The Buddha will not die, the Buddha will continue to live in the holy body of the law. The extinction of the Blessed One will be by that passing away, in which nothing remains that could tend to the formation of another self. Nor will it be possible to point out the Blessed One as being here or there. But it will be like a flame in a great body of blazing fire. That flame has ceased, it has vanished, and it cannot be said that it is here or there. In the body of the Dharma, however, the Blessed One can be pointed out. For the Dharma has been preached by the Blessed One. Ye are my children, I am your Father, through me have ye been released from your sufferings. I myself, having reached the other shore, help others to cross the stream. I myself, having attained salvation, am a savior of others. Being comforted, I comfort others and lead them to the place of refuge. I shall fill with joy all the beings whose limbs languish. I shall give happiness to those who are dying from distress. I shall extend to them succor and deliverance. I was born into the world as the King of Truth for the salvation of the world. The subject on which I meditate is truth. The practice to which I devote myself is truth. The topic of my conversation is truth. My thoughts are always in the truth. For, lo, myself has become the truth. Whosoever comprehendeth the truth will see the Blessed One, for the truth has been preached by the Blessed One. 55. One essence, one law, one aim. And the Tathagata addressed the Venerable Kassapa, to dispel the uncertainty and doubt of his mind, and he said, all things are made of one essence, yet things are different according to the forms which they assume under different impressions. As they form themselves so they act, and as they act so they are. It is, Kassapa, as if a potter made different vessels out of the same clay. Some of these pots are to contain sugar, others rice, others curds and milk, others still are vessels of impurity. There is no diversity in the clay used, the diversity of the pots is only due to the molding hands of the potter who shapes them, for the various uses that circumstances may require. And as all things originate from one essence, so they are. developing according to one law, and they are destined to one aim, which is nirvana. Nirvana comes to thee, Kassapa, when thou understandest thoroughly, and when thou livest according to thy understanding, that all things are of one essence and that there is but one law. Hence, there is but one nirvana as there is but one truth, not two or three. And the Tathagata is the same unto all beings, differing in his attitude only in so far as all beings are different. The Tathagata recreates the whole world like a cloud shedding its waters without distinction. He has the same sentiments for the high as for the low, for the wise as for the ignorant, for the noble-minded as for the immoral. The great cloud full of rain comes up in this wide universe, covering all countries and oceans to pour down its rain. Everywhere, over all grasses, shrubs, herbs, trees of various species, families of plants of different names growing on the earth, on the hills, on the mountains, or in the valleys. Then, Kassapa, the grasses, shrubs, herbs, and wild trees suck the water emitted from that great cloud which is all of one essence and has been abundantly poured down, and they will, according to their nature, acquire a proportionate development, shooting up and producing blossoms and their fruits in season. Rooted in one and the same soil, all those families of plants and germs are quickened by water of the same essence. The Tathagata, however, O Kassapa, knows the law whose essence is salvation, and whose end is the peace of nirvana. He is the same to all, and yet knowing the requirements of every single being, he does not reveal himself to all alike. He does not impart to them at once the fullness of omniscience, but pays attention to the disposition of various beings. 56. The lesson given to Rahul. Before Rahul, the son of Gautama Siddhartha and Yasodhara, attained to the enlightenment of true wisdom, his conduct was not always marked by a love of truth, and the Blessed One sent him to a distant vihar to govern his mind and to guard his tongue. After some time the Blessed One repaired to the place, and Rahul was filled with joy. And the Blessed One ordered the boy to bring him basin of water, and to wash his feet, and Rahul obeyed. When Rahul had washed the Tathagata's feet, the Blessed One asked, "Is the water now fit for drinking?" "No, my lord," replied the boy, "the water is denied." Then the Blessed One said, "Now consider thine own case. Although thou art my son, and the grandchild of a king, although thou art a samama who has voluntarily given up everything, thou art unable to guard thy tongue from untruth, and thus defilest thou thy mind." And when the water had been poured away, the Blessed One asked again, "Is this vessel now fit for holding water to drink?" "No, my lord," replied Rahul, "the vessel, too, has become unclean." And the Blessed One said, "Now consider thine own case. Although thou wearest the yellow robe, art thou fit for any high purpose? When thou hast become unclean like this vessel?" Then the Blessed One, lifting up the empty basin and whirling it round, asked, "Art thou not afraid lest it should fall and break?" "No, my lord," replied Rahul, "the vessel is but cheap, and its loss will not amount to much. Now consider thine own case, said the Blessed One. Thou art whirled about in endless eddies of transmigration, and as thy body is made of the same substance as other material things that will crumble to dust, there is no loss if it be broken. He who is given to speaking untruths is an object of contempt to the wise. Rahul was filled with shame, and the Blessed One addressed him. Once more, listen, and I will tell thee a parable. There was a king who had a very powerful elephant, able to cope with 500 ordinary elephants. When going to war, the elephant was armed with sharp swords on his tusks, with scythes on his shoulders, spears on his feet, and an iron ball at his tail. The elephant master rejoiced to see the noble creature so well equipped, and, knowing that a slight wound by an arrow in the trunk would be fatal, he had taught the elephant to keep his trunk well coiled up. But during the battle the elephant stretched forth his trunk to seize a sword. His master was frightened and consulted with the king, and they decided that the elephant was no longer fit to be used in battle. O Rahul! If men would only guard their tongues, all would be well. Be like the fighting elephant who guards his trunk against the arrow that strikes in the center. By love of truth the sincere escape iniquity. Like the elephant, well subdued and quiet, who permits the king to mount on his trunk, thus the man that reveres righteousness will endure faithfully throughout his life. Rahul, hearing these words, was filled with deep sorrow. He never again gave any occasion for complaint, and forthwith he sanctified his life by earnest exertions. 57. The Sermon on Abuse. And the Blessed One observed the ways of society and noticed how much misery came from malignity and foolish offences done only to gratify vanity and self-seeking pride. And the Buddha said, if a man foolishly does me wrong, I will return to him the protection of my ungrudging love. The more evil comes from him, the more good shall go from me. The fragrance of goodness always comes to me, and the harmful air of evil goes to him. A foolish man, learning that the Buddha observed the principle of great love which commends the return of good for evil, came and abused him. The Buddha was silent, pitying his folly. When the man had finished his abuse, the Buddha asked him, saying, Son, if a man declined to accept a present made to him, to whom would it belong? And he answered, in that case it would belong to the man who offered it. My son, said the Buddha, thou hast railed at me, but I decline to accept thy abuse, and request thee to keep it thyself. Will it not be a source of misery to thee? As the echo belongs to the sound, and the shadow to the substance, so misery will overtake the evildoer without fail. The abuser made no reply, and Buddha continued. A wicked man who reproaches a virtuous one is like one who looks up and spits at heaven. The spittle soils not the heaven, but comes back and defile his own person. The slanderer is like one who flings dust at another when the wind is contrary. The dust does but return on him who threw it. The virtuous man cannot be hurt, and the misery that the other would inflict comes back on himself. The abuser went away ashamed, but he came again and took refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. 58. The Buddha replies to the Deva. On a certain day when the Blessed One dwelt at Jetavana, the garden of Anathapindaka, a celestial Deva came to him in the shape of a Brahmin whose countenance was bright and whose garments were white like snow. The Deva asked questions which the Blessed One answered. The Deva said, "What is the sharpest sword? What is the deadliest poison? What is the fiercest fire? What is the darkest night?" The Blessed One replied, "A word spoken in wrath is the sharpest sword, covetousness is the deadliest poison, passion is the fiercest fire, ignorance is the darkest night." The Deva said, "Who gains the greatest benefit? Who loses most? Which armor is invulnerable? What is the best weapon?" The Blessed One replied, "He is the greatest gainer who gives to others, and he loses most who greedily receives without gratitude. Patience is an invulnerable armor, wisdom is the best weapon." The Deva said, "Who is the most dangerous thief? What is the most precious treasure? Who is most successful in taking away by violence not only on earth, but also in heaven? What is the securest treasure trove?" The Blessed One replied, "Evil thought is the most dangerous thief, virtue is the most precious treasure. The mind takes possession of everything not only on earth, but also in heaven. And immortality is its securest treasure trove." The Deva said, "What is attractive? What is disgusting? What is the most horrible pain? What is the greatest enjoyment?" The Blessed One replied, "Good is attractive, evil is disgusting. A bad conscience is the most tormenting pain, deliverance is the height of bliss." The Deva asked, "What causes ruin in the world? What breaks off friendships? What is the most violent fever? Who is the best physician?" The Blessed One replied, "Ignorance causes the ruin of the world. Envy and selfishness break off friendships. Hatred is the most violent fever, and the Buddha is the best physician." The Deva then asked and said, "Now I have only one doubt to be solved, pray, clear it away. What is it? Fire can neither burn, nor moisture corrode, nor wind crush down, but is able to reform the whole world." The Blessed One replied, "Blessing. Neither fire, nor moisture, nor wind can destroy the blessing of a good deed, and blessings reform the whole world." The Deva, having heard the words of the Blessed One, was full of exceeding joy. Clasping his hands, he bowed down before him in reverence, and disappeared suddenly from the presence of the Buddha. 59. Words of instruction. The bhikkhus came to the Blessed One, and having saluted him with clasped hands they said, "O Master, thou all-seeing one, we all wish to learn, our ears are ready to hear, thou art our teacher, thou art incomparable. Cut off our doubt, inform us of the blessed Dharma, O thou of great understanding, speak in the midst of us, O thou who art all-seeing, as is the thousand-eyed Lord of the gods." We will ask the Muni of great understanding, who has crossed the stream, gone to the other shore, is blessed and of a firm mind. How does a bhikkhu wander rightly in the world, after having gone out from his house and driven away desire? The Buddha said, let the bhikkhu subdue his passion for human and celestial pleasures, then, having conquered existence, he will command the Dharma. Such a one will wander rightly in the world. He whose lusts have been destroyed, who is free from pride, who has overcome all the ways of passion, is subdued, perfectly happy, and of a firm mind. Such a one will wander rightly in the world. Faithful is he who is possessed of knowledge, seeing the way that leads to nirvana, he who is not a partisan, he who is pure and virtuous, and has removed the veil from his eyes. Such a one will wander rightly in the world. Said the bhikkhus, certainly, O Bhagavat, it is so, whichever bhikkhu lives in this way, subdued and having overcome all bonds. Such a one will wander rightly in the world. The Blessed One said, whatever is to be done by him who aspires to attain the tranquility of nirvana, let him be able and upright, conscientious and gentle, and not proud. Let a man's pleasure be the Dharma, let him delight in the Dharma, let him stand fast in the Dharma, let him know how to inquire into the Dharma, let him not raise any dispute that pollutes the Dharma, and let him spend his time in pondering on the well-spoken truths of the Dharma. A treasure that is laid up in a deep pit profits nothing and may easily be lost. The real treasure that is laid up through charity and piety, temperance, self-control, or deeds of merit, is hid secure and cannot pass away. It is never gained by despoiling or wronging others, and no thief can steal it. A man, when he dies, must leave the fleeting wealth of the world, but this treasure of virtuous acts he takes with him. Let the wise do good deeds, they are a treasure that can never be lost. And the bhikkhus praised the wisdom of the Tathagat. Thou hast passed beyond pain, thou art holy, O enlightened one. We consider thee one that has destroyed his passions. Thou art glorious, thoughtful, and of great understanding. O thou who puttiest an end to pain, thou hast carried us across our doubt. Because thou sawst our longing and carriedst us across our doubt, adoration be to thee, O Muni, who hast attained the highest good in the ways of wisdom. The doubt we had before, thou hast cleared away, O thou clearly seeing one, surely thou art a great thinker, perfectly enlightened, there is no obstacle for thee. And all thy troubles are scattered and cut off, thou art calm, subdued, firm, truthful. Adoration be to thee, O noble sage, adoration be to thee, O thou best of beings, in the world of men and gods there is none equal to thee. Thou art the Buddha, thou art the Master, thou art the Muni that conquers Mar, after having cut off desire thou hast crossed over, and carriest this generation to the other shore.